galaxy does not care about goodness. It never has. Across a million worlds, war continues. The Imperium pushes its crusades forward, claiming territory in the Emperor's name, burning heretics and Xenos alike. Forge worlds churn out weapons. Hive cities collapse under their own weight. Agri-worlds bleed themselves dry, feeding an empire that devours more than it can ever sustain. And on the fringes and the dark spaces between stars, entire populations vanish without record, without mourning, without memory. Nothing has changed. The Guardian walked through dozens of worlds. He stood between danger and the innocent. He held back horrors that would have consumed thousands. And yet the Imperium remains exactly as it was. The Ecclesiarchy still preaches blind faith. The Inquisition still hunts without mercy. The Administratum still calculates lives as numbers on parchment, adjusting tithes and quotas with the cold efficiency of a machine that feels nothing. The wars he interrupted have resumed. The soldiers he saved were reassigned to new battles, new meat grinders that care nothing for their survival. The refugees he sheltered were eventually processed, categorized, and forgotten by a bureaucracy so vast that individual suffering disappears into its endless archives. This is Warhammer. This is the Imperium of Man. A galaxy where heroism is a statistical anomaly, where sacrifice is expected, not celebrated, where even the greatest acts of compassion are swallowed by an indifferent universe that grinds forward regardless. And yet, on Viridia Prime, a settlement still stands. Families still wake in the morning. Children still play in streets that should have been ash. The Tyranid Hive fleet moved on, its vanguard shattered by a silent figure who asked for nothing in return. On Sanctum's gate, the Underhive remembers. Not in prayers or statues, but in the way parents hold their children closer when the lights flicker. In the way gangers pause before preying on the weak, recalling a shape in the darkness that protected without judgment. On Arkan III, evacuation routes were rewritten. Not officially, not in any Imperial record, but the local PDF commander quietly adjusted protocols, ensuring civilians had more time to flee. Because once, on a world much like this one, someone proved that protecting the innocent was still possible. These are not victories, they are echoes, small, fragile pockets of light in an ocean of darkness. They do not change the galaxy. They do not alter the Imperium's trajectory, but they exist. And that existence, however small, however temporary, matters. The galaxy does not care about goodness, but goodness persists anyway, not because it is rewarded, not because it is recognized, but because some beings, even when broken, even when lost, even when abandoned by everything they once knew, choose to stand between cruelty and the defenseless. The Guardian is not a hero. He is not a legend. He is a relic from a dead world, wandering through a universe that has no place for him. But his actions ripple outward in ways the Imperium cannot measure, in ways the Administratum cannot quantify, in ways that defy the cold logic of a galaxy built on suffering. Wars continue. Crusades advance. Worlds burn. But scattered across the Imperium, in places no one will ever record, survival exists where annihilation was certain. Not because of faith, not because of the Emperor's will, but because one being, ancient and silent, refused to stop protecting those who could not protect themselves. The galaxy does not change, but within its cruelty, impossibly, pockets of hope endure. Big Daddy moves slower now, not from weakness, not from hesitation, but from the accumulated weight of years that have worn down even his reinforced frame. His armor, once pristine and terrible in its efficiency, now bears the permanent scars of 100 battles. Blast marks that never quite fade, dents that cannot be hammered out, seals that leak faint traces of coolant into the void. His drill no longer spins with the effortless power it once possessed. The mechanism grinds, catching on damaged gears, stuttering before finding its rhythm. His movements are heavier. Each step resonates with the fatigue of a machine pushed far beyond its intended operational lifespan. But he does not stop. World after world, system after system. Wherever the currents of the warp carry him, wherever his wandering path leads, Big Daddy continues. Not hunting danger, not seeking glory, simply existing in the spaces where suffering unfolds and choosing again and again to intervene. His actions have become smaller, more personal. Less about grand battles and more about quiet moments that no historian will ever chronicle. On an industrial manufacturing world, he guides terrified workers through collapsing hab blocks, holding debris aloft while they crawl to safety. On a war-torn frontier planet, he stands at the rear of a refugee column, ensuring no predator picks off the stragglers. On a station beset by pirates, he positions himself in a corridor, immovable, giving civilians time to seal bulkheads and hide. He no longer charges into battle. He endures it, absorbs it, becomes the wall that others shelter behind. His helmet's faceplate is cracked now, spiderwebbed fractures spreading across the reinforced glass. One of his shoulder pauldrons hangs loose, welded back into place with crude repairs that would horrify a tech priest. His internal systems rattle with each breath, coolant circulation struggling to maintain optimal temperature. Any other being would have sought rest. Any other warrior would have found a quiet place to shut down, to let the long silence claim them. But Big Daddy was not built to rest. He was built to protect. And that purpose, deeper than programming, stronger than any mechanical failure, drives him forward. He does not speak. He does not explain himself. When Imperial forces arrive after the crisis is past, he is already gone, leaving behind only the confused testimonies of survivors who struggle to describe what they witnessed. Some call him a ghost, others a machine spirit given form. A few whisper that he is a fragment of the Omnissiah's will, testing the faithful. But most simply do not understand. They survived, and that is enough. The mystery of their salvation fades beneath the relief of continued existence. Big Daddy does not need their understanding. He never did. On the edges of the galaxy, far from Terra's light, he walks through a settlement ravaged by orc raids. The greenskins have moved on, but their cruelty lingers. Big Daddy finds a child trapped beneath rubble, whimpering in the darkness. He does not rush. He carefully, methodically lifts each piece of debris, ensuring the structure does not collapse further. When the child is free, terrified and sobbing, Big Daddy simply stands nearby, present, until the child's parents arrive, drawn by the sound of their daughter's cries. They stare at him, this towering figure of rust and violence, this impossible thing that should not exist in their world. Big Daddy meets their gaze through his fractured faceplate. And then, without ceremony, without acknowledgement, he turns and walks away. This is his existence now. Not battles won, not enemies vanquished. Just small moments of protection, offered without expectation, repeated endlessly across a galaxy that will never thank him. His joints ache with a sensation no machine should feel. His power core fluctuates, struggling to maintain consistent output. His audio receptors crackle with interference, phantom sounds from a life he cannot fully remember. But when he hears a cry for help, distant and desperate, something in his core system surges. Not duty, not programming, something deeper, something that transcends the meat and metal that comprise his form. He turns toward the sound. His drill begins to spin, grinding and stuttering, but spinning nonetheless. His heavy boots press into the ground, leaving deep impressions in the soil. And Big Daddy walks forward, slower than before, heavier than before, but inevitable. Because this is what he is. This is what he has always been. Not a hero, not a legend, just a guardian who keeps walking. The Inquisition does not forgive. It does not forget, but it does prioritize. And in a galaxy drowning in heresy, Xenos incursions, and demonic corruption, even the most dedicated hunters must eventually shift their focus to more immediate threats. Inquisitor Varrac's obsession with the anomaly has not diminished. In his private chambers, reports still accumulate. Testimony, fragmentary evidence of the creature's continued existence. But each report arrives weeks, sometimes months, after the event. By the time inquisitorial forces reach the reported location, the anomaly has vanished. No trace, no trail, only confused civilians and the lingering mystery of their survival. Varrac stares at the data slate in his hand, reading the same reports for the 100th time. His staff has begun to question his focus, gently at first, then with increasing concern. Resources are finite. The Inquisition's mandate is vast, and while the anomaly represents a genuine theological concern, it has not directly threatened imperial stability. It protects. And that protection, however unsanctioned, however heretical in its origin, complicates the matter. A younger Inquisitor might continue the hunt regardless, but Varrac has served for decades. He understands the calculus of necessity. A chaos cult has emerged in the Helican sectors, suborning entire planetary governments. A Genestealer infestation has been detected on a Forge world critical to Battlefleet Obscuras. A Dark Eldar raiding party has abducted thousands from a Cardinal world, and the Ecclesiarchy demands immediate retribution. The anomaly, dangerous as it may be, has killed no loyal servants of the Imperium, has destroyed no Imperial infrastructure, has not consorted with demons or Xenos. It simply exists, moving through the shadows, intervening in ways that defy easy categorization. Vrak closes the data slate. His jaw tightened. This is not mercy. This is not forgiveness. This is triage, the cold reality of an Inquisitor's burden. He reassigns his operatives. The hunt does not end officially. It merely becomes a secondary priority. Agents are instructed to report any sightings, but active pursuit is suspended. The anomaly is reclassified from immediate threat to long-term investigation. In the vast archives of the Inquisition, Big Daddy's file is moved from active operations to the watch list. A footnote, an endless catalog of mysteries the Imperium cannot immediately resolve. Elsewhere, in the towering halls of the Administratum, the Guardian's existence fades into bureaucratic obscurity. Reports of an unidentified entity assisting Imperial citizens are filed under unexplained phenomena. No resources are allocated. No investigation is lodged. The Administratum has processed stranger anomalies. In a galaxy where saints manifest, machine spirits awaken, and the warp bleeds reality itself, one protective entity barely registers. The Guardian is not forgiven. He is simply absorbed into the background noise of an Imperium too vast to police every mystery. Big Daddy does not know this. He does not track the Inquisition's movements. He does not monitor Imperial communications. He only knows that the hunters who once pursued him with relentless focus have stopped appearing. No ambushes. No sudden deployments of inquisitorial kill teams. No traps designed to corner and neutralize him. The galaxy's attention has moved on. For most beings, this would be relief. The chance to exist without constant threat. But Big Daddy does not process the change in those terms. He does not feel relief. He does not celebrate his survival. He simply continues. Because the absence of hunters does not change his purpose. The lack of pursuit does not alter what he is. On a pilgrim world beset by famine, he helps distribute food supplies, his massive frame carefully maneuvering through crowded relief centers. On a mining colony suffering equipment failures, he holds together collapsing scaffolding while workers evacuate. On a transport ship crippled by engine failure, he stands in the flooded engineering deck, physically bracing damaged conduits until repairs can be completed. The Inquisition does not see these acts. The Administratum does not record them. The Imperium remains ignorant of the small, persistent kindness unfolding in its forgotten corners. And perhaps that is for the best. Because the moment the Imperium pays attention, the moment these acts are cataloged and analyzed, they risk being weaponized, turned into propaganda, twisted into something they are not. Big Daddy's protection is pure because it expects nothing, demands nothing, seeks nothing in return. The hunters have lost the trail, not because Big Daddy evaded them through cunning or strategy, but because the galaxy's cruelty is simply too vast, too all-consuming, for even the Inquisition to chase every shadow. Vrak knows this. In the quiet moments between crises, he still wonders about the anomaly, still questions what it truly is, still feels the weight of an unsolved mystery. But duty calls, and in the Imperium of man, duty is everything. The hunt fades, not with resolution, not with closure, but with the slow, inevitable erosion of priority. Big Daddy walks on, unburdened by the knowledge that he is no longer hunted. Because being forgotten by the Imperium is not freedom. It is simply the natural state of those who protect without asking for recognition. The world is called Thalacha Inferior, an oceanic mining colony clinging to survival beneath crushing waves and endless darkness. Vast underwater installations harvest rare minerals from the planet's seabed, their structures ancient and failing, held together by stubbornness and desperate maintenance. Big Daddy arrives via derelict transport, drawn by currents he does not understand. The moment his boots touch the metal dock, something shifts inside him. Not memory, not quite, but a resonance, a familiarity that transcends conscious thought. The architecture is wrong for this galaxy. Too smooth, Too Art Deco in places, blending imperial brutalism with older, stranger design philosophies. Curved windows look out into abyssal darkness. Flickering lights cast long shadows through corridors filled with the constant groan of pressure and failing seals. It feels like home. Big Daddy moves through the station's lower levels, past workers who barely glance at him. In a place like this, strangeness is commonplace. Bizarre machinery, mutated sea life, and the occasional rogue servitor are simply part of existence. One more armored figure wandering the depths barely registers. But Big Daddy is not wandering aimlessly. He is drawn, pulled by something deeper than logic. His audio receptors pick up the sounds of water moving through ancient pipes. The hiss of pressure equalization. The distant echo of machinery that should not still be functioning. He descends, level after level, into sections marked as condemned, into zones the station's inhabitants have abandoned as too dangerous, too unstable, too haunted by the ghosts of failed habitation. The deeper he goes, the more the architecture shifts. Imperial modifications give way to older construction, riveted plates and reinforced glass. Viewing ports designed for observation, not just utility. Signs and languages that predate the Imperium, faded and corroded but still faintly visible. Big Daddy stops before a viewing window. Beyond the reinforced glass, darkness presses in. But in that darkness, shapes move. Vast structures collapsed and forgotten, the bones of something that once thrived here. A civilization, built with ambition and hubris, now claimed by the depth. Something stirs in his core, not thought, not language, but sensation. The ghost of a purpose that predates his current existence. He remembers pressure, the weight of water pressing down from all sides. He remembers walking through corridors like these, protecting something precious, something fragile, something that could not protect itself. A child's laughter, impossibly distant, a memory or a hallucination he cannot tell. Big Daddy places one massive hand against the glass. The cold seeps through his gauntlet. His reflection stares back at him, distorted and incomplete. A broken thing wandering far from home. The station shudders. Alarms blare in the distance. Big Daddy turns, the moment of reflection broken by immediate need. The lower habitation sectors are flooding. A structural failure, catastrophic and sudden. Water pours through breached seals, rising with terrifying speed. Workers scramble, trying to evacuate, but the access corridors are bottlenecked. Panic spreads faster than the flood. Big Daddy moves, not running, but with the steady, inevitable purpose of something built for exactly this environment. He wades into the rising water. It does not slow him. This is what he was made for. This is the element he was designed to dominate. The first group of workers are trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead, water rising to their chests. Big Daddy reaches the obstruction and simply drives his drill into the worked metal, tearing it apart with methodical precision. The workers stare at him, terrified and confused, but he gestures toward the exit. They do not need further encouragement. Another section. The water is higher here over his helmet. The pressure immense. His audio receptors pick up the screams of those still trapped, muffled by tons of water but unmistakable. He finds them in a sealed compartment, water pouring through a dozen ruptures. Children clinging to their parents. The inevitable rising around them. Big Daddy does not hesitate. He positions himself beneath the largest breach and simply pushes upward. His actuators scream in protest. His frame groans under the strain, but he holds. Tons of water press down, trying to force their way through, and Big Daddy becomes the barrier. With his free hand, he gestures toward the escape hatch. The workers understand. They move quickly, helping the children first, then the injured, then themselves. The last worker pauses at the hatch, looking back at the figure holding back the ocean itself. Big Daddy does not turn, does not acknowledge. He simply maintains his position, drill arm braced against the wall, body locked in place. The worker seals the hatch, and for a moment Big Daddy is alone in the flooding chamber. Water surrounds him completely. Darkness presses in. The familiar weight of the deep. He does not fight it. He simply exists within it. A creature of the abyss, home at last. His systems register critical pressure warnings, structural integrity failing, power core fluctuating dangerously. But he does not move, not until he is certain the survivors have reached safety. Only then does he release his hold. The water surges in completely, filling the compartment instantly. Big Daddy is thrown back, tumbling through the surge, but his stabilizers engage. He finds his footing and begins the slow, heavy walk toward the surface. Behind him, the lower sections collapse completely, claimed by the ocean. Return to the depths that always, inevitably, reclaim what humanity builds in defiance of nature. Big Daddy emerges into the upper levels, water streaming from his armor. Workers stare at him, some in fear, some in awe, most simply in confused relief. He does not stop to receive their gratitude. He simply walks toward the docking bay, toward the next departure, toward whatever comes next. But for a brief moment, wandering through those drowned corridors, surrounded by crushing darkness and the weight of impossible depths, Big Daddy felt something he has not felt since arriving in this galaxy. He felt like himself. The evacuation order comes 3 hours too late. By the time the administratum processes the request, verifies the documentation, and dispatches rescue vessels, Thalassia Inferior's collapse is inevitable. The structural failures have cascaded beyond repair. The entire station is sinking, pulled toward the crushing depths by its own weight and the ocean's relentless pressure. Most of the population has already fled. The wealthy, the connected, those with private transports or the credits to bribe their way onto early shuttles. But in the lower halves, in the forgotten sections where the poor and desperate cling to survival, hundreds remain. Children born in the depths who have never seen sunlight. They crowd into the emergency muster stations, listening to the grinding roar of metal tearing itself apart, watching water seep through seals that were never meant to hold this long. The evacuation shuttles are coming. Administratum efficiency may be glacial, but it is thorough. Help is coming, but it will not arrive in time. Big Daddy stands in the central concourse, watching the civilians huddle together. Parents clutch their children. The elderly sit in quiet resignation. A few pray to the Emperor, voices lost beneath the station's death throes. He calculates, not with numbers, not with logic, but with the deep instinctive understanding of someone who has existed in failing structures before. The station's support columns are fracturing. The habitation ring will detach from its moorings within the hour. When it does, it will sink rapidly, dragged down by the weight of flooded lower sections. The pressure at those depths will crush the remaining compartments instantly, unless something holds the ring in place, unless something bears the weight. Big Daddy turns toward the engineering core. His damaged systems protest. Warning indicators flash across his internal displays. His power reserves are dangerously low. His structural integrity is already compromised from the earlier rescue. By every measure of self-preservation, he should board the next departing shuttle. Escape while escape is still possible. He does not. The engineering core is a cathedral of machinery, vast pistons and support struts designed to stabilize the entire habitat ring. Most are already failing, hydraulics ruptured, control systems offline. But a few, buried deep in the station's heart, still function. Big Daddy descends into this mechanical labyrinth. Water pours around him, knee-deep and rising. Sparks cascade from severed power lines. The air is thick with coolant vapor and the acrid stench of overheating systems. He finds the primary load-bearing strut, a massive column of reinforced metal 30 meters tall, groaning under unimaginable stress. Fractures spiderweb across its surface. It will fail soon, and when it does, the entire ring will collapse. Big Daddy positions himself beneath it, not replacing the strut, but augmenting it, becoming part of the structure itself. He braces his shoulders against a support beam, plants his feet wide, and begins to push upward. His actuators scream. His frame groans. Metal grinding against metal, stress far beyond design specifications. But he holds. Above in the muster stations, the civilians feel the shuddering station stabilize slightly. The grinding roar lessens. Not stopped, but slowed, delayed. They do not know why. They do not understand that somewhere below, a relic from a dead world has chosen to become the foundation they need. Time passes differently in the engineering core. Big Daddy does not track minutes or hours. He only knows the weight pressing down on him, the constant strain on every system, the slow, inevitable degradation of his frame under stress it was never meant to endure. His audio receptors pick up the sounds of evacuation, shuttles arriving, docking clamps engaging, the organized chaos of people moving toward salvation. Families bored first, then the injured, then the workers who kept the station functional until the very end. Big Daddy listens to the children crying as they are carried away from the only home they have ever known. He listens to parents whispering reassurances they do not believe. He listens to the last footsteps echoing through empty corridors. And he holds. His power core flickers, critical failure imminent. His leg actuators are seizing, locked in place by sheer force rather than hydraulic function. Coolant leaks from a dozen ruptured seals pooling around his feet. The last shuttle departs. Its engines roar through the water, growing distant. Silence settles over the station. The kind of silence that only exists in abandoned places, in structures waiting to die. Big Daddy could release his hold now, could attempt to reach the surface before the final collapse. But his systems are too damaged, his reserves too depleted. He would not make it. And perhaps, in some deep part of his fragmented consciousness, he knows this is appropriate. This feels right. To stand alone in the darkness, holding back inevitability for those who cannot hold it themselves. This is what he has always been. The strut above him fractures. Not completely, but enough. The weight increases exponentially. Big Daddy's knees buckle. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he is driven down. Not by enemies, not by violence, but by the simple, inexorable force of physics. He drops to one knee, then both. His entire frame compresses under the strain. Metal screams. Systems fail one after another. His vision flickers, optical sensors struggling to maintain function. In the darkness, in the crushing weight, Big Daddy does not think of rapture, does not remember the life he lost. He simply focuses on the present, on holding, on enduring, on being what he has always been. The station shudders. A final massive tremor. And then impossibly the weight lessens. Not by much, but enough. Emergency support drones, dispatched by the departing administratum vessels, have engaged the station's remaining stabilizers, not to save the structure, but to delay its collapse long enough to confirm all personnel have evacuated. They do not know Big Daddy is still here. Do not know he has been the true support all along. The drones work quickly, welding temporary braces, reinforcing key joints, buying minutes, maybe an hour. Big Daddy remains locked in place, unable to move. His systems are failing too rapidly now, cascading shutdowns rippling through his frame. The last drone completes its work and departs. The station groans, and slowly, with the inevitability of avalanche, begins its final descent into the abyss. Big Daddy does not struggle, does not fight. He simply waits in the darkness, held in place by his own choice, as the ocean he once called home rises to claim him. The station sinks for 6 hours, a slow, grinding descent into darkness absolute. Support structures collapse one by one. Compartments implode under pressure. The metal carcass of human ambition becomes just another reef on the ocean floor. Big Daddy sinks with it, still locked in place, still bearing weight that no longer needs bearing. His systems have entered emergency shutdown. Power core reduced to minimal function. Consciousness, if he possesses such a thing, reduced to the barest flicker. But he does not die. On the ocean floor, beneath a kilometer of black water and crushing pressure, Big Daddy's frame is wedged beneath the station's collapsed infrastructure, buried in debris, entombed in the wreckage of his final stand. Then Dave. The station settles into the sediment. Native sea life begins to explore the new structure, bizarre creatures adapted to impossible depths investigating the strange metal growths. And then on the third day, something moves within the wreckage, slowly, grinding against twisted metal. Big Daddy's hand emerges from the debris. His drill, damaged beyond repair but still functional, begins to turn, not with smooth mechanical precision, but with the stuttering, determined rotation of a tool pushed far beyond its limits. He cuts, pushes, slowly excavates himself from his own tomb. It takes hours. His movements are those of something badly damaged. His left arm hangs useless, actuators completely destroyed. His helmet's faceplate is shattered, exposing the dark interior to the ocean itself. Water floods his suit, pressure equalizing inside and out. But his core remains sealed. His primary systems, protected by layers of redundancy built into him long ago, persist. Big Daddy breaks free from the wreckage and begins to walk, not upward toward the surface, not fleeing the depths, simply walking along the ocean floor, each step slow and heavy, leaving deep impressions in the sediment. He walks for days, through underwater canyons, across plains of soft mud where nothing has ever walked before, past creatures that should not exist, evolutionary nightmares adapted to eternal darkness. He does not know where he is going. His navigation systems are offline. His sensors barely function. He simply moves in one direction, driven by some instinct deeper than programming. Eventually, he finds an abandoned maintenance shaft, a tunnel carved into the continental shelf, part of the colony's original mining operations. He follows it upward, a slow, methodical ascent through kilometers of darkness. When he finally breaches the surface, it is far from any settlement, a desolate stretch of rocky coastline where the ocean meets jagged cliffs. Big Daddy drags himself onto the rocks and lies still, systems desperately trying to stabilize. He remains there for 2 more days, unmoving. To any observer, he would appear deactivated, dead. But on the 3rd day, his systems complete their emergency reboot. Power flow stabilizes. Damaged circuits reroute around catastrophic failures. He is not repaired. He is not whole. But he is functional. Big Daddy stands. Water streams from his armor, pooling around his feet. His posture is different now, more hunched, one shoulder permanently lower than the other. His movements have lost their fluid precision, replaced by a jerky, compensating gait. But he stands. Far above, in orbit, the Administratum records the Lasha Inferior as a complete loss. The station collapsed. Acceptable casualties given the circumstances. Evacuation efficiency rated at 73%. Within acceptable parameters. The survivors are processed, relocated to other colonies, given standard compensation. Their testimonies are recorded in triplicate, filed in archives no one will ever read. Some mention a figure in the depths, a protector who held back the water. But these accounts are marked as stress-induced hallucinations, trauma responses, the human mind creating meaning in chaos. No official record acknowledges Big Daddy's actions. No imperial citation honors his sacrifice. No Saints' Day commemorates his choice. The Administratum moves on. The Imperium continues. The galaxy remains indifferent. Big Daddy walks inland, leaving the ocean behind. His damaged frame struggles with terrestrial movement now. Each step requires more effort than it once did. His power core provides less output. His sensors have blind spots. His strength, while still formidable, is diminished. He is less than he was, worn down by accumulated damage that cannot be repaired, by sacrifices that cost more than he could regenerate. But he endures. In a small settlement near the coast, families tell their children about the evacuation, about the fear, about the certainty of death, and about the impossible moment when the station stabilized, when time was bought, when they were given the minutes needed to reach the shuttles. They do not speak of Big Daddy. They do not know his shape or name, but they remember that something, somewhere in the depths, stood between them and oblivion. That memory does not manifest as worship, does not become prayer. It simply exists as a quiet truth, a story passed between parents and children in the evenings when the ocean storms rage. Something protected us. We do not know what. We do not know why, but it was there. This is not victory. Victory implies triumph, celebration, recognition. Big Daddy receives none of these. He survived, yes. But survival is not triumph. It is simply continuation. He walks through the wilderness alone and damaged. No destination. No plan. Just the persistent, stubborn momentum of something that refuses to stop despite every logical reason to do so. Behind him, the colony's survivors adapt to their new lives. The children grow. The families rebuild. They carry with them the memory of near death and impossible salvation. They do not know they were saved by a relic, by a broken protector from a dead world, wandering through a galaxy that has no place for kindness. But they were saved, and that saving, however anonymous, however unrecorded, ripples outward in ways the Imperium cannot measure. Big Daddy continues walking. His drill drags slightly, grinding against stone. His footsteps are uneven. His silhouette against the alien sunset is that of something worn and ancient. But he stands, and standing he endures. And enduring, he remains exactly what he has always been. On Terra, at the heart of the Golden Throne, the Emperor endures his own eternal vigil. 10,000 years of unimaginable agony, of consciousness stretched across millennia, of awareness forced to span an entire galaxy while trapped in a body that is more corpse than living being. The Emperor sees everything and nothing. His perception fragments across billions of moments, watching the Imperium through the eyes of saints and psychers, feeling the warp's tides, sensing the great threats that press against humanity's fragile borders. And in one infinitesimal fraction of his vast, tortured awareness, he senses the Lascia inferior. Not the station, not the evacuation, but the moment beneath it, the choice made in darkness and pressure, the decision to bear weight without reward. For the briefest instant, the Emperor's attention focuses. A fragment of his consciousness, impossibly ancient and impossibly weary, observes. He sees Big Daddy, not with eyes, not with any physical sense, but with a deep, fundamental perception that transcends material reality. He sees the entity for what it truly is, a relic, a guardian, a being whose purpose was coded so deeply that even transportation across universes could not erase it. The Emperor understands this, because he too is bound by purpose beyond choice. He too endures not because he wishes to, but because abandoning his vigil would mean the annihilation of everything he once tried to protect. In that moment, the Emperor and the Guardian exist in a strange symmetry. Two beings trapped by their own nature, unable to stop, unable to rest, condemned to protect a humanity that will never fully understand what is sacrificed on its behalf. The warp, that howling nightmare realm of emotion and chaos, grows still around the moment. Not silent, never silent, but quieter. As if even demons and dark gods recognize something occurring that exists outside their understanding. A sacrifice made without prayer. Protection offered without faith. Duty fulfilled without expectation of divine reward. These are concepts the warp struggles to process. Chaos feeds on desire, on ambition, on the desperate bargains mortals make seeking power and survival. But here is an act that offers nothing to exploit, no rage to corrupt, no hope to twist, no despair to amplify, just pure, simple purpose. The Emperor does not intervene. He cannot. His power is stretched impossibly thin, holding back the tide of demons that claw eternally at the borders of reality. Every fragment of his will is allocated. Every portion of his strength committed to humanity's survival. He cannot spare even a fraction to assist one damaged guardian on a forgotten ocean world. But he acknowledges, in the space between thoughts, in the realm beyond physical reality, the Emperor's awareness touches Big Daddy's existence. Not his blessing, not his curse, simply as recognition. You endure. As I endure. You protect. As I protect. You persist without reward. The moment passes. The Emperor's attention fragments again, pulled by 1,000 crises across 1,000 worlds. A demonic incursion on Cadia's borders. A saint manifesting in the Segmentum Pacificus. A black crusade forming in the Eye of Terror. Big Daddy, struggling from the wreckage on Lascia Inferior, does not sense the observation, does not feel the Emperor's brief, distant acknowledgement. He simply continues his slow crawl toward survival, unaware that for one impossible moment, the master of mankind looked upon him and understood. In the warp, the moment of stillness fades. Chaos resumes its eternal churn. Demons return to their plotting. The dark gods continue their infinite game. But something has been witnessed. Something has been acknowledged. Not by prayer, not by faith, but by the simple act of endurance mirroring endurance. Of sacrifice recognizing sacrifice. The Emperor does not speak. He has not truly spoken in 10,000 years. But if he could, if his ruined throat could form words, he might whisper a single truth into the void. The right thing still matters. Even when nothing changes. Even when no one sees. Even when the cost is everything and the reward is nothing. It matters because we choose to make it matter. And in choosing, we prove that humanity, for all its cruelty and ignorance, still contains something worth protecting. On Terra, the Golden Throne hums with its endless, terrible machinery. The Emperor's broken body endures another moment of its eternal torment. His consciousness splinters across the galaxy, fighting wars that will never truly end. And on a distant ocean world, a damaged guardian pulls himself from the depths and continues walking. Neither knows the other exists. Neither can offer the other aid. But for one brief, impossible moment, they shared something profound. The burden of protection, the weight of duty, the cost of caring for those who will never know your name. The Emperor looks away, not from indifference, not from cruelty, but because his vigil allows for no rest, no distraction, no respite. He returns to his eternal watch. And Big Daddy, unaware and unburdened by the knowledge, walks forward into whatever comes next. Two guardians, separated by species, by time, by the very fabric of reality itself, but bound by the same fundamental truth. Stopping is not an option. Rest is not possible. The work of protection is never finished. And so they endure. Each alone, each carrying weight too great for any single being. The Emperor on his golden throne. Big Daddy on nameless worlds. Both silent, both relentless, both proving through simple persistence that meaning can exist even in a galaxy designed to crush it. The warp shift. The galaxy turns. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the work continues. Legends in the Imperium are carefully constructed. Saints are canonized through bureaucratic processes spanning centuries. Heroes are vetted, their deeds verified through testimony and documentation. The ecclesiarchy controls the narrative of holiness with the same iron grip it controls doctrine. But some stories slip through, whispered at the edges, shared in the spaces the Imperium does not monitor. These are not legends of conquest or glory. They are quieter, smaller, stories of survival that should not have occurred. On Viridia Prime, a grandmother tells her granddaughter about the day the sky fell, about the creatures that descended, all teeth and hunger, and about the shape that emerged from the ruins, standing between the monsters and the children. On Sanctum's gate, gang leaders tell new recruits about the ghost in the underhive, about the rule that has emerged without enforcement. You do not prey on the help, not because the Arbites will stop you, but because something else might be watching. On Arkan III, a PDF commander briefs his officers on evacuation protocols. He does not explain why he added extra time for civilian retreat. He does not mention the reports from similar colonies. He simply states quietly that protecting those who cannot protect themselves is not weakness. It is duty. These stories do not name Big Daddy. Most do not even describe him accurately. The details shift with each retelling. Some describe a towering knight, others a hulking automaton. A few insist it was an angel, sent by the Emperor himself. But beneath the variations a pattern emerges, a shape in the darkness, a protector without expectation, something that stands between danger and the innocent, asking nothing in return. The ecclesiarchy does not recognize these stories. They do not fit established hagiography. They cannot be traced to approved saints or blessed martyrs. When priests hear such tales, they gently redirect the faithful toward more orthodox devotion. But the stories persist, because they are not about worship. They are about something simpler, more fundamental. Hope, not the grand orchestrated hope of imperial propaganda, but the small, desperate hope of people who have survived impossible odds and need to understand why. On a transport ship traveling between systems, a mother comforts her crying child. She tells him about the Guardian, about how, even in the darkest places, someone might be watching over them. She does not know if the Guardian is real, but the story soothes her son, helps him sleep despite the ship's endless vibrations and the uncertainty of their destination. In a manufactorum on a hive world, workers share the story during their brief rest periods. It becomes a game. Each worker adds a detail. A new world where the Guardian appeared. A new crisis averted. The story grows, becomes almost mythological in scope. But at its core, the message remains consistent. You are not alone. Even in the Imperium's cruelty, even in the galaxy's indifference, someone, somewhere, chose to protect without being ordered to. This is not worship. The workers do not build shrines, do not pray to the Guardian. They simply carry the story with them, a small light against the darkness of their daily existence. And the story spreads, not through official channels, not through sanctioned texts, but through the organic, unstoppable network of human connection, whispered between refugees, shared in mess halls, told to children to help them sleep. The symbol itself begins to change meaning. That strange circular faceplate, those heavy riveted arms, the drill that appears in some versions of the tale. People begin to replicate it. not as religious iconography, but as reminder, as symbol of a philosophy. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. On some worlds, parents paint the symbol on their children's beds. On others, it appears as graffiti in dangerous districts, a warning to predators that someone might be watching. On a few, workers etch it into the machines they operate, a quiet prayer to the machine spirits mixed with the hope that if catastrophe strikes, someone will stand between them and oblivion. The Inquisition notices eventually. Reports of an unauthorized symbol spreading across multiple sectors. Investigations are launched, but the investigators find nothing heretical. No demon worship, no Xenos corruption. Just a symbol that people have adopted for reasons they struggle to articulate. It makes them feel safer. That is all. The investigations are closed. Resources allocated elsewhere. The symbol is classified as a minor cultural phenomenon, not worth suppressing unless it evolves into something more dangerous. And so it persists, growing, changing, spreading through the Imperium's lower classes like a benign infection. Big Daddy does not know any of this. He walks from world to world, unaware that his actions have created ripples far beyond their immediate effects. Unaware that he has become, in the minds of countless desperate people, proof that meaning can exist even in meaninglessness. He is not a hero. He is not a saint. He is simply a guardian who refused to stop guarding. But to those who carry his story, he is something more profound. He is evidence. Proof that in a galaxy built on cruelty, kindness can endure. That in an Imperium that measures value in productivity and faith, someone chose to measure it in protection. The stories are not accurate. Many are embellished beyond recognition, but their emotional core is true. Something stands in the darkness. Something that does not demand faith or obedience. Something that simply acts when action is needed. And that, more than any imperial truth, more than any ecclesiarchy sermon, gives people reason to endure one more day. The legend grows, not of a name, not of a person, but of an idea. Protection without reward. Duty without expectation. Meaning without recognition. In the Imperium of Man, where everything is transactional, where every act serves the machine, this idea is revolutionary. And it spreads quietly in the spaces between official doctrine. Big Daddy walks through another ruined corridor. The world does not matter. The conflict that devastated this place is already over. The Imperium has moved on. The survivors, if any, have been evacuated or abandoned according to the cold calculus of imperial efficiency. But ruins remain. And in ruins, danger lingers. Structural collapse, chemical leaks, predators drawn to the scent of decay. Big Daddy's armor is more scar than metal now. His drill barely functions, stuttering and grinding with each rotation. His left leg drags slightly, actuators damaged beyond his ability to repair. His faceplate, shattered on Thalacha Inferior, has been crudely patched with salvage materials that do not quite match. He looks like what he is, a relic, something that should have stopped functioning long ago but persists through stubborn momentum and purpose deeper than mechanics. The corridor stretches before him, half collapsed. Emergency lighting flickers, casting dancing shadows. Water drips from ruptured pipes. The air is thick with dust and the acrid smell of burned electronics. Big Daddy moves forward. Each step a testament to endurance over efficiency. And then he hears it. Distant, muffled by debris, but unmistakable. A child crying. Big Daddy stops. His audio receptors focus, filtering out the ambient noise. Beneath the rubble, trapped but alive, he turns toward the sound. His damaged systems do not protest. They simply engage, rerouting power, compensating for failed components, preparing for whatever comes next. This is what he is. This is what he has always been. The galaxy has not changed. The Imperium continues its endless wars. Trillions suffer and die in the Emperor's name. Cruelty remains the standard. Indifference the norm. But in this moment, in this forgotten corridor on a world whose name Big Daddy does not know, something simple and profound occurs. A guardian hears a cry for help and turns toward it, not because he expects reward, not because he seeks recognition, not because any authority commanded it, but because this is his purpose. Deeper than programming, stronger than damage, more fundamental than survival itself. Big Daddy begins to dig through the rubble. His drill spins, slower than it once did, but spinning nonetheless. His massive hands move debris piece by piece, careful not to cause further collapse. Behind him, the corridor stretches into darkness. Before him, somewhere beneath tons of wreckage, someone waits for salvation they have no reason to expect. The galaxy does not care. The Imperium will not record this act. No history will preserve this moment. But it happens anyway. Because some beings, even when broken, even when lost, even when abandoned by everything, choose to stand between cruelty and the defenseless. Big Daddy continues digging. The work is slow. His systems flicker warnings he ignores. His power reserves drain to critical levels. But he does not stop. Somewhere above, stars burn in the void. The Imperium's wars grind forward. The Great Crusades claim new worlds. The Ecclesiarchy spreads its doctrine. The Administratum files its endless reports. And beneath it all, in forgotten places, in the spaces between official attention, small acts of protection persist. Not changing the galaxy. Not altering its fundamental cruelty. Just creating tiny pockets of survival where annihilation was certain. Big Daddy breaks through the final layer of debris. A small hand reaches up, grasping at the light. He takes it gently, his massive gauntlet engulfing the tiny fingers, and lifts. The child emerges, confused, staring at the impossible figure that pulled them from darkness. Big Daddy does not speak, cannot speak. He simply stands, holding the child until the sound of approaching rescue teams echoes through the ruins. Then, as he has done countless times before, he sets the child down in a safe location and turns away, walking back into the darkness before questions can be asked, before explanations are required. His silhouette disappears into the shadows, just another shape in the ruins. Another mystery the Imperium will never solve. The child is found, rescued. Eventually, they will be relocated, given a new assignment, absorbed back into the Imperium's vast machinery. They will remember the Guardian, the shape in the darkness, the impossible rescue. But memory, like everything else, will fade, distorted by time, mixed with other traumas, eventually filed away in the mind's deep archives as something that might have been dream or hallucination. But for now, for this moment, they know. Someone came. Someone stood between them and death. Someone cared enough to dig through rubble for a stranger they would never see again. And that knowing, however temporary, however small, matters. Big Daddy walked, damaged, slower than before, but walking, always walking. The galaxy remains cruel. The war continues. Suffering persists. But somewhere in the darkness, in the forgotten corners, in the ruins no one remembers, the Guardian still stands. Not because he must, not because he was ordered, but because standing is what he is. And as long as he can move, as long as his systems function, as long as purpose remains, he will continue. World after world, crisis after crisis, one small act of protection after another. The Imperium does not see him. The galaxy does not acknowledge him. History will never record him, but he endures. Eternal. The Guardian still stands. Thank you to everyone who followed the story till the end.